Thank you so much. To the graduates of the class of 2026, my congratulations to you all, but also my sympathies to you all. You're coming of an age in a complex era of rapid change. It feels hard to predict the near-term future and hard to make long-term decisions. There's a story of a famous statistician who was struggling to make an important life decision about whether he should stay on the East Coast or move to the West Coast. A colleague said to him, "You're an expert in statistics. You know the best way to make a decision is to write down all the possible outcomes with their probabilities and find the decision that maximizes the expected utility." The statistician looked at the colleague with disbelief and responded, "You don't understand, this is real life." Our difficulty in dealing with uncertainty is mitigated by the fact that we are part of communities, which can help us with long-term decisions. You are part of a community called CDSS. Commencements are moments in which we feel part of our community. At my own commencement, far away in the midst of time, sitting in my cap and gown, I found myself next to someone who I hadn't met during my 4 years at the university. Somehow it felt that something should be said, and small talk seemed misplaced, so we just started talking as if we'd had a long friendship. We kept talking during the very boring commencement speech. We talked about our hopes, fears, experiences, and our families. We then went our separate ways with none of the sadness that usually accompanies a separation. I can still remember the sensation of how unexpectedly deep a human connection can be if the context is right. The theme of my remarks is going to be human connection in the era of internet technology. Let me first briefly mention my credentials for tackling such a subject. First, in addition to being a data scientist, I'm also a musician with a deep respect for human artistic creativity, and I'm multilingual with a deep awareness of the need for human connectivity. Lastly, I have children, and I know very well what it's like to worry about the future. On that note, let me first address the parents. You may have been wondering over the past 4 years what data science is, or computer science, or statistics. Suffice it to say, they are all concerned with the use of data to inform decisions in areas of science, commerce, healthcare, and civil society. Of course, the phrase artificial intelligence or AI is also being used these days to refer to this activity. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. There's no clear distinction between data science and AI. Indeed, the way I think about it, AI is just data science with an overabundance of rather clueless type A personalities in charge. Yes, graduates, I hereby license you to refer to yourselves as AI researchers if and when that phrase is useful to you, for example, in your salary negotiations. Okay, we really do have to talk about AI. All of us are being affected by AI, and our progeny will be even more affected by AI. We need some clarity about what it is, what it might be, and how all of us can help shape its further development in positive ways. In discussing AI, highly exaggerated language has become common, with some arguing that AI will usher in an age of plenty and resolve our thorniest problems, and others arguing that it may enslave or destroy the human species. Listening to all of this, it's easy to get confused. The usual way to talk about AI technology is to first overview some of the amazing recent developments that seem like science fiction, and then turn to the concerns. At this point in time, however, I think it's helpful to invert the order and start with the concerns. So let's be clear at the outset that there are some major challenges that the new technology is engendering. First, it is clear there are going to be many kinds of job categories that are either going to disappear over the next decade or be transformed in ways that are hard to predict. This includes the job of computer programmer, which is amazing because a decade ago, many of us viewed it as the safest job. Second, education is going to need a thoroughgoing overhaul. As recent graduates, that's perhaps alarming, but hopefully you've understood by now that education is not a once and done kind of thing. Third, inequality is going to be a consequence of the early years of this technology. There will be wealth inequality, even beyond what we see now, and there will be inequality of opportunity. It will be very tricky to navigate between allowing this to play out and let market forces mitigate it versus aiming to stamp it out. Fourth, the proliferation of fake AI-generated text and images is currently disrupting our society. That will continue. Finally, the health and even the existence of democracies around the world will be challenged by all these issues. Anti-democratic movements will feed on labor market upheaval, inequality, and misinformation. Faced with this uncomfortable list of facts, a natural reaction is, let's slow all of this down, and why do we have to have so much technology anyway? I grew up in the 1960s, and such reactions come very naturally to me. But I'm going to argue that we need ongoing technological progress, that it is elitist to argue otherwise, and that it need not undermine the things that make humans human. A tall order for the next 7 minutes. Let's start with a positive example of AI progress, one that could be viewed as mundane, given promises of curing cancer, but is nonetheless striking. Let's say you've written something and you're seeking feedback on what you've written. Friends and family are not very good sources of such feedback, as you will know if you've ever told a friend that his or her novel isn't very good. Oops, ex-friend. Recently, I input a piece that I'd written into ChatGPT to ask for feedback. The feedback was superb. Careful, interesting feedback down to the level of the paragraph, suggestions for how to make things clearer, suggestions of what else I could say. I've never had such good feedback in all my years at the university, as a student or as a professor. Surely this development is good for the species. It will provide this capability all around the world right now. It will create challenges, in particular our educational system. The job of essay grader will be endangered. Similarly, many secretarial jobs and management jobs seem endangered, as are the consulting jobs that used to be the goal of so many undergraduates. And so on. The question I want to focus on now is, where does it stop? Are there some things that the AI systems can't do? And what is the concrete economic relevance of this distinction? One way to think about this is to investigate cases where the AI evangelists seem to be over-extrapolating. Here's an example. Loneliness is an increasing problem in modern society. It has been argued that chatbots can solve this problem. Yes, some people enjoy dialogues with chatbots, and chatbots can mitigate the loneliness problem. But the idea that chatbots can entirely replace humans is a mirage and even dangerous. When a human wants a real connection, they need something other than fluent text. For example, consider the notion of vulnerability. A real human connection is often based on a mutual sense of vulnerability. Can you imagine applying the word vulnerable to ChatGPT? What would it mean to hurt ChatGPT's feelings? How might apologizing for hurting ChatGPT advance the relationship? Some of our deepest emotions arise from having had a lifetime's experience with its accumulation of little successes and little failures, its repository of great moments and great pains. Interacting with a human opens up the possibility of sharing such trajectories. This happens not only in one-on-one conversations, but also when we make connections with musicians, novelists, and other human artists. Generative AI systems are currently writing music and writing novels. Will this work be listenable or readable? Probably. But don't tell me that generative AI will autonomously produce work that deeply connects with me. Generative AI doesn't have a lived life. It can fake a lived life, but who wants a fake companion with a faked life? To summarize, I believe there will continue to be jobs in which the possibility of deep human-community connection is a critical part of the job. And there will be new such jobs. These will not be going away. There will be even more of them in the future. Humans need other humans. To take this line of thought a little bit further and make it yet more scientific, it's important to understand that even though AI chatbots seem like a person, and indeed an extremely knowledgeable person, that's in part an illusion. If I ask a question to ChatGPT about general relativity, I'll get back a great answer. That answer, though, is originating from people who've been writing about relativity on the internet. If I ask about intriguing new restaurants in Buenos Aires, I'm also going to get a great answer. It will be coming from another set of humans. I can ask billions of questions, and what's happening is I'm being connected to billions of subsets of humans. So instead of thinking of ChatGPT as a person, think of it as a window onto a culture. Cultures are repositories of narratives, opinions, and abstractions. Cultures have personalities. So even chatbots can be thought of as ways to connect humans with humans. Let's take that point still further. Human connections aren't just about warm and fuzzy feelings. They also involve economic value. Many interactions involve people who have skills, ideas, and creative works to offer, and they want to team up with other people so that they can build things together that neither could do individually. This phenomenon is known as a market. Markets have been around for thousands of years, and they are responsible for the lion's share of our prosperity. Moreover, markets can be intelligent in ways that individuals aren't, just as ant colonies can do things that individual ants can't. New kinds of intelligent markets can and should arise in the AI era, creating new kinds of jobs. We need to work on that. As an example, while at Berkeley, I've been involved in a company that has been a disruptive force in the music industry. It has built a three-way market linking musicians, listeners, and brands. Data science is used to make intelligent choices of songs for brands based on the demographics of listeners and the needs of brands. When a song gets played, for example, when the NBA uses a song in a video clip, the musician behind the song gets paid directly. This is an example of an AI-based market that is actually creating jobs. And I hope that if you're entrepreneurially minded, you'll think of other such companies that you might create that create jobs of that kind, where human-human connections are the key. As a next step in making the data science program at Berkeley still more impactful, and still more likely to produce graduates who will create companies that link humans in productive ways, I believe that the field of economics should be brought in as a core partner. Graduates should learn about markets. They should learn about the difference between equilibria and optima, and learn about how market equilibria can create social welfare. They should learn about market pathologies and learn about effective ways to regulate markets for the common good. They should also learn to resist the knee-jerk dismissiveness of markets and economics that one all too often encounters in academia. Finally, let's return to whether we should keep our feet on the accelerator in data science and AI, or whether we should slow down. I believe that we need to keep moving. The reason is simple but non-trivial. We are over 8 billion people on this planet. If there were a few thousand of us, then hunter-gatherer technology would do just fine, but we're not. And at the vast scale of the species, we need new technology and new kinds of markets to help us survive and thrive. It is elitism to assert that things are good enough as it is. So graduates, it's your turn. You are entering a complex world. While it will be impossible to avoid being confused and even fearful at times, here are a few things that may help. First, take a deep breath. This era isn't like a gold rush, where you need to grab opportunities quickly or they'll disappear. The opportunities and challenges will be there in a year, in 5 years, and in 10 years. This era is more akin to the Industrial Revolution, when thoughtful people were able to build things that brought substantial value to humanity for 2 centuries and counting. How does one become a thoughtful person if you aren't already? Take some time to read novels, study history, learn a language, and travel to a different part of the world. Learn to play a musical instrument. Second, remember that it's when people come together that amazing things happen. We tend to overemphasize the accomplishments of so-called geniuses and assign to such geniuses the accomplishments that are really the work of communities. As the great postmodern philosopher Taylor Swift once said, "I'm just a girl who's been told she's a genius, but what's a genius if she's all alone?" Thank you.